Bismillahirrahmanirrahim. Assalamualaikum warahmatullahi wabarakatuh and very good evening. Today we are going to continue our lecture on how to write a good research objective. For today's topic, I will share with you on the research objectives. Basically, in terms of the learning outcomes, at the end of this session, you should be able to define the research objective and then be able to identify the characteristic of research objectives, and you should also be able to explain the needs of research objectives, discuss the type of research objective, and finally write research objective. Did you know that the time you spend to refine and define your overall research objective and your specific objective is well spent and will pay back manifold? Once your research objectives are ready, you have completed half of your thesis requirements. The remaining half is straightforward, meaning that it's hands-on work. What does that mean is that if you have written a very good, clear research objective, meaning that you have been halfway of your goals to have your study being completed. That your well-defined research objective will help you identify the type of study you will do. Practical limitations and or advice from your supervisor may require that you reformulate all or some of your objective. And this is part of research process, meaning that it can be very ambitious in terms of the writing or the statement of the research objective, but it depends on your supervisor, whether your supervisor will agree or not, or the supervisor having enough resources to support your objective. Okay, and then of course you may redesign or reformulate your objective. In terms of the introduction, research is an organized investigation, systematic investigation of a problem in which there is an attempt to gain solution to a problem. And to get right solution of a right problem, clearly defined objectives are very important. In other words, clearly defined objective will enlighten the way in which the researcher has to proceed. So what is research objective? Okay, can be stated here. It is a clear, it can be stated clear, concise, and declarative statement, which provides direction to investigate the variable, the design parameters. It focuses on the ways to measure the variables. So in the research objective, we will state the measure to obtain the variables, to obtain the design parameters and the performance parameters. And some objectives are directed towards identifying the relationship or the difference between two variables. Okay, so later we will look at what do we mean by relationship or difference between two variables. And the results sought by the researcher at the end of the research process. It is stated in the research objective, and a research objective also summarizes what is to be achieved. Okay, so it's clearly state what is actually going to be achieved at the end of the study, and of course it is closely related to the earlier problem statement, right, that you have already defined. In our previous lecture, you have already looked at how to write a good problem statement. Okay, what are the characteristics and what are the characteristics of a research objective? It is a concrete statement describing what the research is trying to achieve, right? And normally, a good research objective or just general objective should be written in a smart way. And maybe some of you have already heard about this in terms of an objective should be smart. And what are the elements of smart? And the S element is basically it has to be specific, and a research objective must be specific. It cannot be general. Of course, this is a objective in a general definition. An objective should be specific. It should be also measurable, right? And it is also should be attainable, and it must be relevant to the work, and it is also has a time base. That is an objective in general definition. But what is objective in terms of research? Okay, is it the same? Is it that we can just use the formula or the definition of smart over here, which is specific, measurable, attainable, relevant, and time based, right? So, in terms of the definition of a research objective, it should be using a what we call it as a formula, right? So, what is that? What is actually behind formula? F stand for feasible, right? Meaning that it is possible to do easily or conveniently. This is just now it is this is just now we define objective, but now what is actually research objective? The first one is F, feasible, means that it is possible to do easily or conveniently, right? What is O? O is observable. A research objective should be able to be noticed. It is able to be noticed or perceived. So that is what we mean by research objective. FO. Now, what is R? R is relevant. We just now in objective also relevant, okay, appropriate to what is being done. Okay, it cannot be something not relevant to the topic, okay, or subject under study. It must be relevant, and then it also must be measurable. Okay, able to be measured. What are the quantity? What are the units behind it? Right, you can able to be measured, and then unequivocal, unequivocal, meaning that leaving no doubt, meaning that it is clear, concise in terms of the objective that being written. It leave no doubt on whenever someone else read it, they will see that the objective is to do this and this, or to find this, or to calculate something. Right? It is very clear. And then logical, okay, it according to the rules of logic. And finally, achievable. So it is able to be brought or about or reached successfully at the end of the study, right? So these are the definition of a research objective, okay, in terms of the word formula here compared to the earlier just objective that use the smart objective. But this the definition that for research objective, I would like you to be clear that whenever you write a research objective, it must at least fulfill all the criteria here. Okay, let us continue. The characteristic of research objective also, it should be reasonably achieved within expected time frame. Meaning that if you are doing a 2-semester dissertation, the research objective must be achievable within the time frame, within the 12 months. And it cannot be, I want to do something. My master duration is only 2 years, but I can only achieve this after 5 years. So that is not a good research objective. And it is with the available resources. Of course, when you want to do something, you are very ambitious, So, but you want to, for example, like you want to run an experiment, but you do not have the rig, and you do not have the experimental setup, you do not have the equipment. So most likely you may want end up to do a just a simulation or just a theoretical study. So it depends on the available resources. And then it includes also obtaining answers to research questions or testing the hypothesis. So later we will look at what do we mean by research question, how research question being crafted, and how that the hypothesis can be tested in a research objective. All right. In terms of the need, why do we need a research objective? The formulation of research objective will help researchers basically to do the following. It will be able to help researchers to focus on the study. It avoid the collection of data which are not relevant and related in the problem solving. And sometimes students write research objective, but they go beyond the objective that being stated. Okay, so by having a good research objective, it will avoid you from do unnecessary data collection, which are not relevant probably in your scope of study, right? And then it will be very helpful to organize the study in clearly defined parts and phases. So normally, a good research objective, it is you do number one first. After you complete number one, you then continue to number two, and then the following research objective, and it can be tailored to your research methodology flowchart. And at the same time, if you look at your research objective, if we relate back to our K chart, you can easily say this is objective number one, this is objective number two, and this is objective number three, easily from your K chart. All right. A research objective also needed to facilitate the development of research methodology. Okay, and finally, it's orient the collection, analysis, interpretation, as well as utilization of the data used in your study. Okay, there are needs of research objective. And earlier, I have already mentioned about the types of research objective, where we have general objective. Okay, so we have the first one, general objective, which is normally it is a broad goals. It is a very general. Okay, and it state the aims in general term. So there's no specific information stated, whether it is geographically or it is according to specific types and so on. It is just aims in general, and normally it is written in only one sentences. It is only one sentences. It is not general objective. You have two or three lines or a paragraph that stated the general objective. Meanwhile, a specific objective will indicate a short term and not narrow in focus, right? So that's why you have the first objective, and then a student or a researcher will then try to achieve the first objective, and then followed by the second objective. It is a very focused and small logically connected parts of general objective, meaning that it is actually an elaboration of the general objective. We have the general objective, and the specific objective basically trying to give more details, right? And the third item here, it is systematically address various aspects of problem as defined in the problem statement. So basically, where does a research objective coming from? It come from your problem statement. How are you going to solve the problem by putting a general objective, and it is being clearly defined in the specific objective. Some students may ask, do we need to write a general objective, or can we just straight away specify a specific objective? So normally in a research, you will have a general aim or general objective. For example, like um, you want to investigate the performance of a vehicle, right? So general objective. You want to investigate the performance of vehicle, but it does not specify what are the parameters of the performance, what are the constraint, and how are you going to do it. So maybe going to be spelled out in the specific objective, all right? So let's move on. In terms of the example of a research objective, I give you an example here, a general example, general objective, to assess the knowledge of staff nurses working in psychiatric unit regarding physical restraint. And that's a general objective, right? If we look here, we can clearly see what is the system under study. System under study also being stated in the general objective. To assess, of course, you want to know in terms of you want to investigate what happened in the level of knowledge of staff nurses, right? And knowledge of staff nurses, and then they are working in psychiatric unit, right? Of course, and then they are working in a hospital or in a clinic in what unit, what department? Psychiatric unit. And basically, what kind of knowledge is basically on the physical restraint, right? So you can easily say that the system under study is the knowledge of staff, knowledge of staff nurses. It's not the doctors, it is the staff nurses. And where is it? It is in psychiatric unit. And regarding what? The information, knowledge on the physical restraint. So that is general objective. So let us see what are the specific objective. The specific objective that can be written after you have write the general objective. For example, to assess the knowledge regarding physical restraint among nurses working in psychiatric unit, and then to evaluate the effect of planned teaching on physical restraint among nurses, and also to associate knowledge with selected demographic variables. So you can create a lot of things there. You can compare the knowledge on physical restraint between staff nurses in one department with another department. You can also simulate the situation. You can so many verbs that you can use to create a specific objective, because the first one is just a general objective, and then the rest can be written as the specific objective. First, how to write objective. I put here 5 steps or 5 guidelines on how we can start to write the objective. So a research objective must be presented briefly and concisely, right? And then it covers the different aspect of the problem and its contributing factors in a coherent way and in a logical manner. As I said earlier, you have you must do objective number 1 first, and you do number 2 and number 3. It cannot be suddenly you start the last item of your work to be the first objective, and then the second one, and then it is jumbled up. It's not like that. Okay, so it clearly phrased in operational terms, specifying exactly what researcher is going to do, right? Where, as well as what purpose. All right. So because it depends on the verbs that being used in the sentences. All right. And then realistics, considering local conditions. Okay. And finally, uses action verbs that are specific enough to be measured. Okay. That's are the steps in terms of the guideline that must be taken care in terms of when you want to state the objective of the study, right? Example of action verbs that normally being used. You can, for example, like to access, you can investigate, you can calculate, evaluate, determine, find, compare, identify. You want to establish, you want to find out, you want to verify things, validate, you want to study, you want to describe, you want to analyze, you want to synthesize, you want to design, correlate, measure, simulate, build, fabricate, select, arrange, and many more. Right? Many more action verbs that you can use in order for you to state the objective. But there are also things that you cannot put there. For example, in a research objective, you don't say that you want uh, you want to simulate or you want to run a simulation in a finite element analysis. That is the methodology. It's not an objective. So no, there are some common mistake students normally do. They put the methodology inside the research objective, which is wrong. Normally, we do not put the research methodology, the methodology that you want to use. For example, you want to do simulation or you want to do experiment using this and that. You do not spell it out in the methodology. In the research objective. So you just mention the final aim. You want to investigate this. You want to compare this. You want to fabricate something in order for you to achieve something. So you do not put the methodology that you have chosen in the research objective. Right? Let us continue. So forth. In summary, we have already discussed the definition of research objective. We already identified the characteristics of research objective. We already explained the need of research objective and discussed the type of research objective. And finally, we have already shown the how to write a good research objective. I hope that would be very beneficial for you, and we will continue in our next lecture. Till we meet again, stay safe. Bye-bye for now. Assalamualaikum warahmatullahi ta'ala wabarakatuh.
Thank you, Prof.
Thank you, Prof.
Thank you so much,
Bye.
Prof.
Thank you, Prof. Assalamualaikum.
Waalaikumsalam.